If you're watching for the first time, if you watched after last week, what do you think the most important thing to pay attention to is as far as the rosters are concerned?
Well, I mean, we saw Lontar competing on Team Bronze Troll last week, and he separated and joined a new team called Group Therapy, and they have a couple names on there that if you don't know, you definitely should know. Walrix, the Lord and Savior of Warlock, Destruction God, basically, and they picked up Zot, the Shadow Priest legend. He's been top of the ladder for at least 2 expansions right now. He's always producing content at the highest level on multiple classes, and Lontar is comparably the European equivalent to what you would consider Sea-Doo, if you know who Sea-Doo is at this point, so North America's shaman hero, and I'm very curious to see how they perform overall, because that roster could be what takes it all.
And if last week was your first time actually watching, you might not know who Sea-Doo is, but he has made it to the top 6. We're going to get to see who he is. A little bit of struggles with them learning the meta, but they have, it seems, learned it now, but it's changed. So there are quite a few tweaks that we do need to talk about. Ben, for anybody who is like, okay, what is new? Let's take a look at that right now.
Yep, so basically mana regeneration was nerfed for essentially all the healers and some of the hybrid off classes like the Balance Druid and the Feral Druid and the Elemental Shaman. So what that basically means is healers are going to be wanting to play as efficient as possible and looking for opportunities throughout the game to sit down, get out of combat, drink some water, which will regenerate that mana. So I think that's really going to come into play this weekend. Healers looking to get out of combat, drink, and the other team's going to have to try to stop them the best they can.
One change that wasn't on there, of course, is going to be Nourish. 30% mana difference now on that spell. So we do pay attention to that. We're going to be looking as well, though, when we see all of these changes, Alliance seems like it really is going to be the choice this week, Zico.
Yeah, Alliance, of course. Even last week already, we were criticizing some of these teams for not necessarily playing it, but of course, the Alliance, they have that Shadow Meld racial, and of course, Druids being a very, very popular healer in these cups so far, it's going to be very nice for them. You can get those drinks because of the reduced mana regeneration. It's going to be very important to actually get those drinks off. Shadow Meld allows you to become invisible for a second, basically, and you lose combat, and if you're out of combat, that's when you can start drinking. So we're going to be seeing a lot of potential night elves sneaking away to the side, shadow melding, and then sitting down for those drinks, trying to regen some of that mana back.
Well, let's see who's sneaked into a good spot on the bracket. Let's see who has made it to our top 8 and the teams that we're going to be getting to watch this time around. We will start as well with the lower portion of the bracket. We're going to start with Tempo Storm versus Group Therapy. We'll talk about that in a second. You can see Change My Mind, CGN Gold also going to be there in the lower portion of the bracket. And then some of the teams that already did assert their dominance last week up in the top. Method Black looking to do it again this year. They look very strong, but I do want to say, Sid, when we start talking about this meta, we're going to see the way that everything will unfold today as well on our schedule. But when we talk about this meta, what do we actually expect to be strong? Is it still going to be Resto Druid even after these changes?
I mean, the one thing that Restoration Druid has going for it, because we've been talking about it on the desk a lot, is drinking as a Restoration Druid is the most advantageous and I would say the easiest of all healers, because they have access to an ability called Prowl, which puts them into stealth. And you can start your drink and activate Prowl at the same time, and you're drinking and you're invisible to the enemy team. So it can be very difficult to pinpoint where did that person sit down, because when someone's drinking, you can attack them to stop it and it will stop the mana regeneration. But if it's an invisible person you're trying to stop, it's a lot more difficult to actually prevent. So Restoration Druids can definitely exploit that the most, which is why it's likely to see still a prominent, I think, showcase of Restoration Druid overall in the tournament. But we do have a couple of other healers. I believe Numliz plays Priest and Mistweaver, and then obviously Lontar on Restoration Shaman. So there will be some other healers, but Druid is definitely going to be taking the most advantage of this.
As you guys can tell, there's a lot that we want to talk about. A lot of it is going to come down to the changes that we see in the game and also the rosters. But first, we need to put under the microscope Tempo Storm and Group Therapy, our first series of the day. Tempo Storm, how did this roster actually look to you last week, Ven?
Oh, they look fairly solid. I mean, they have a lot of the best compositions. You can see here going into the blind pick against Group Therapy, they're actually going to be locking in Resto Druid, Enhancement Shaman, Arms Warrior, so bringing in that turbo.
I think it's Elemental.
Oh, yeah.
The Stormkeeper icon there.
Lightning Lasso as well. So this is a composition that is fairly popular. We haven't seen it too much in this particular meta, but it definitely deals a lot of damage, very durable, and it could work out well against group therapy.
All right, what a way to start off the day. Let's see how these changes actually do affect the game. Tempo Storm versus group therapy.
What's actually under the radar is the Balanced Druids and Elemental Shaman mana regeneration nerfs. So Balanced Druids will not be able to mash out tons of Cyclones. They'll actually run out of mana. Elemental Shamans as well will not be able to mash out tons of healing surges. So I'm curious to see how Walrix, normally a Warlock, is going to choose to use that limited resource for his Cyclones in this match. Can be definitely important during those Lightning Lasso moments. We do see FedEx going after Jamie, Nixie going after Wally, trying to set up some 1v1 situations as Walrix is trying to push forward, just getting smashed at the moment though.
Yeah, into a Stormbolt, a lot of damage. Gladiator Safeguard, that tank trinket will proc to keep him alive, keep him much more durable, but now won't have that available for a little bit. Incapacitate onto Asgarath as well as a bash. So group therapy pushing in. They're looking for some crowd control. Jamie, and he has to make a decision here. Is he going to use his Astral Shift? No, he will not. Ironbark connects from Asgarath, and that will more than likely keep him alive.
Yeah, nice trade there by Asgarath, preempting the situation. Now setting up some crowd control for his team. Great play here as they go after Walrix, managing to get through a couple pieces of important defense. That Earthen Wall Totem of Lontar is now 40 seconds, no longer available. Barkskin as well at 40 seconds, which means Walrix is a lot more of a squishy target. He's going to be taking a lot more damage and potentially needs to consider pulling away or looking for some Cyclones, because right now he's just trying to go toe-to-toe with raw damage, and it's really not an exchange that he's taking the best of at this point in time. Lontar expending a lot of mana, but Asgarath actually falling much more behind. He's definitely going to need to look for drinks here shortly. Maybe not. He's actually just killing Walrix. Maledix activates. Lontar he's going to Dispel and drop the Spiritling Totem. A very powerful defensive cooldown used very early for the team of group therapy. Walrix finally going for some Cyclones, but if he had gone for that just a little bit sooner, Lontar could have held onto that Spiritling Totem. Walrix switching from Warlock to Balanced Druid definitely needs to up his game.
Yeah, Asgarath, he actually got into stealth, snuck across the map, looking for a Cyclone onto Lontar. Did go for a drink, but in the meantime, Walrix getting low, forced into the Barskin. Nixie does reconnect, but a nice heal incoming from Lontar. Actually had a trinket out there from a Cyclone coming in from Asgarath as well. And group therapy, they're falling behind.
Yeah, the damage for Tempo Storm is quite immense at this moment in time, but Jamie dips low as well. They try and race for the kill, get denied, and now Walrix is just trying to cling to life in that bear form, waiting for Lontar to stabilize, but Nixie continues the chain. Walrix is basically alone at this point in time. Jamie raining down terror, tons of damage. Walrix making misplay after misplay, getting caught by those Earth Shocks out of bear form. It's very important to be in bear form as a balancer to reduce the damage of not only physical, but magic attacks, and Jamie is constantly sneaking Earth Shocks in every time he sees Walrix leave that form. Walrix is just disrespecting the damage and taking bad trades.
Yeah, Asgarath sitting down for a drink once again. FedEx trying to shut it down. I don't think he actually regenerated any mana there, but that constant threat of the Resto Druid running away out of combat forces defensive play from Tempos or from group therapy, unfortunately. And that is just every second FedEx is chasing Asgarath, he's not dealing damage. In terms of mana, both healers are relatively even right now, but for pressure, I feel like Tempo Storm's way ahead.
Yeah, in terms of pressure, but in cooldowns, they're actually equal. Jamie is a vulnerable target, but Walrix needs to find an opportunity to actually attack, and there's nothing he can rely on right now to stay alive, so he's pinned down in bear form. If he leaves bear form, he could easily get closed out if Jamie sees an opportunity. He's got Stormkeeper rolling. He's just going to toss it into that bear form. Walrix comes out for 1 second, immediately back in. He can't afford to lose that defense. Both healers almost tapped on mana at this point. It's going to be a lot more difficult for them to continue this fight going. Asgarath still got Innervate in his back pocket, actually going aggressive, activating that Maledix, absorbing a ton of healing on Walrix. Lontar is struggling. Walrix tosses an Innervate over. As a Balanced Druid, you can give that to your healer. That's the only thing Lontar can heal with. It's important that he gets chain heals out, but he gets crowd controlled. He actually was able to pre-tremor that incoming crowd control and break out. Lontar with an amazing play there might be just enough to keep Walrix going. Now Walrix activating that Incarnation, looking to get aggressive.
Yeah, Asgarath almost completely tapped on mana in this situation. If Walrix and FedEx can keep up this pressure, they can definitely turn this game around. Full leg sweep now on Nixie and Jamie. Nice double stun from FedEx to slow them down and get some pressure. Innervate out for Asgarath, so that's going to allow him to toss out as many heals as he wants, as it reduces all of his spells by basically 100%. He gets free healing there, so ultra important that Lontar pushes in, tries to dispel that off, but unfortunately not able to find it. And Asgarath, because of that, is able to stabilize his team.
Look at Asgaroth so far away, and this is Prowl as a druid. He's slightly invisible to us, but completely invisible to his opponents. He does get denied on the drink. Good awareness by Walrix. They have to at least keep the mana even. Tempo Storm make a swap. They pull more defense from FedEx. Lone Tar and Walrix lock down. Triple crowd control. Tempo Storm look to close in game number 1 as they continue the chain. If Nixie can stay on target, FedEx is keeping him off of Walrix. Good backup by FedEx as he tries to go aggressive and makes a swap to Nixie. Nixie preempts the situation, trades efficiently to stay aggressive. Asgaroth should take this opportunity to drink. They've got group therapy pinned down at this point. They can't push forward. Walrix moves up. Is he going to be able to stop it? I'm curious where Asgaroth is at this time. Everything rides on him. If he can regenerate mana moving into dampening, it's more than surely his match. Walrix sees it, denies it again. Really good drink awareness by Walrix. They cannot allow that battle to be lost. It's the only thing they've got going because the pressure is so much more in favor of Tempo Storm. Nixie secures crowd control. FedEx gets stunned. It looks good again, and Tempo Storm have been in the driver's seat start to finish. Lone Tar is doing whatever he can for his team, but Walrix gets crowd controlled out of the Spirit Link, and that's more than enough to close the game out. Tempo Storm looking fresh in game number 1.
Group therapy with a composition I don't think we expected to see either, right? You say, okay, King Wally's back. It's time to see some Warlock. He's going to be flexing with a pick that I don't think we knew that he had the Moonkin ready. Maybe don't expect to see it today because of something Sid mentioned. It is going to be hard to set up a lot of plays with things like Cyclone. But before we even get into the fact that we have FedEx back, we have Walrix, when we look at these healers, when we see a Shaman, for example, Zico, how often can they be going for different things like purges with the changes that we see to mana?
Well, Purge right now is a pretty high mana cost ability. Same thing really goes for Cyclone as well. I don't think we're going to be seeing the healers pushing in too much to try to play those offensive abilities because the risk versus the reward is just not worth it for the most part because you need to hold on to that precious mana for as long as possible. So I don't think Lone Tar really can go for those purges that often, and I think Asgaroth as well can't go for too many of those Cyclones. You can see Asgaroth, he gets a Cyclone there towards the end when they're going for that kill. We saw a Cyclone earlier on in the match as well when he managed to force out Lone Tar's Trinket. So it's very important that when you do actually go for those type of plays, you have to really make them count as well.
I want to see Walrix on Warlock. I think out of all 6 members in that game, his balance druid was just not there, whether or not it may be the matchup as well, but he was getting constantly caught out of bear form, and Jamie just took huge hits every time, and then Lone Tar has to heal that. So I think if he was playing Warlock, it might have been a better game. I'm really surprised that they didn't start with that.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing, right? So when Sid and I usually talk, a lot of the players that we watch, they play Warlock and Moonkin now, and usually it's Sid's job to want to see the Moonkin, and it's mine to want to see the Warlock. When we agree, usually that means we're seeing something there. But I do want to ask, do you think maybe he's playing out of bear form so much because he's trying to be aggressive when you have something like a Shaman? We get to, what, 1% dampening? The second that we hit dampening, nobody has any mana left, right? Is that one of the reasons that maybe we see him trying to get aggressive on the Moonkin?
I think in the past, Balance Druid has been a lot more durable. Like, I wasn't actually expecting him to take as much damage as he was, so maybe he hasn't had enough war games in the current patch to see how durable he is, so he was trying to see what he could get away with, because if you can get away with it and do more damage, you run the healer out of mana faster, and it makes a lot of sense in that regard, but he was just getting owned the entire game. Like, out of all 6 members, anytime you looked at the health, he was already half health most of the game, never topped off, whereas everybody else was sitting a lot more comfy. So if he was on Destruction Warlock, I think it may have been more of the case, although maybe he's afraid of getting out dampened, so if the other team just avoids the fight the entire time, so if the Balance Druid is a bit more mobile, more instant cast damage, and doesn't get countered entirely that regard, but it's a lot more vulnerable defensively than with the Demon Armor on the Warlock, so it's a trade he's going to have to make here in the rest of the series if he wants to try it.
Yeah, I think if there's any classes in the game that are really disruptive for Destruction Warlock, and Arms Warrior would definitely be one of them. In defensive stance, you don't take that much damage. Yeah. I mean, everyone takes a lot of damage against a Destruction Warlock, but if anyone could sit on a Warlock with a lot of pressure.
It does it into the arms, too.
Yeah, I think this composition is a lot better. I think it's just going to put out way more pressure, especially onto Asgaroth's mana.
Well, I think the biggest difference is why they pick it here is because now you have a Shadow Priest and a Warlock, so you have 2 high-threat targets, you have more spread damage, and the game plan here, of course, is going to be run Asgaroth out of mana as quickly as possible. When you play against the Warrior, like you said, the Warrior is going to have full uptime on that Warlock. He's going to be able to, for sure, burn that mana bar down on that Resto Shaman very quickly as well. And on the flip side, you're not going to have that same uptime on an Ally Shaman, because an Ally Shaman is just way better at kiting compared to a Munkin. A Munkin, they've lost a lot of those mobility spells that they used to have, and it's not really going to be the same thing compared to an Ally Shaman. You just go in Ghost Wolf, you're going to be immune to snares essentially, and you're going to have the knockback, and have a lot of freedom still with those roots to kind of kite everybody out.
Now, I think we spent a lot of time talking about group therapy and what we potentially want to see change with them. I think it's pretty clear why we start talking about that, and you can see that also mirrored in what they decide to do here, starting to make some of these tweaks. Blind picks can obviously be a volatile matchup, to say the least. Tempo Storm, though, I think they deserve quite a bit of praise. You look at Jamie and how he's been able to round out a lot of the comps that these guys do bring, and then when he has the opportunity to do it, he really does shine.
Yeah, I think this is a really intelligent composition as well, especially into group therapy, bringing in a lot of different Shadow Priest and Warlock compositions. Warriors are normally good into that, as well as the Elemental Shaman. You have Tremor for the Fears. You have a lot of disruption with the Grounding Totem, as well as the Wind Shear. Just really good, consistent pressure. And I feel like if anything has changed from last weekend, consistent pressure is definitely up there. I mean, a lot of teams aren't going to be lasting as far into dampening, especially with the mana changes. So just having a lot of consistent pressure with good defense, mitigating the amount of healing your Restoration Druid has to put out, or your healer has to put out in general, is going to save him mana and give you an advantage in the long run.
And we have a lot of thoughts on the desk how we expect things to play out. The players obviously have gotten to play it out a little bit over the past day, really. We were watching a lot of those matches that happened that weren't on broadcast, that don't make it to the top 8. But I think we're still learning a lot. We expect to learn a lot with how these changes are going to impact different compositions, how it will affect this tournament. And already we can see those teams trying to figure it out, trying to actually navigate their way deeper into the tournament. Tempo Storm draws first blood this Friday, and they're going to kind of keep on rolling.
Group therapy with a nice map pick here. Ashamane's Fall, perfect for a Shadow Priest Warlock combination. I'm curious to see how Zot performs. He's very prominent in the Warcraft PvP community, always creating educational content to help new players out, and he's always at the top of the ladder. But a tournament situation is a lot different than ladder play, and I'm really curious to see how his debut is here today, because if they lose this series, they're eliminated from the tournament, so everything may rely on him to carry the team.
Yeah, he's just sitting back, putting out dots, trying to put out as much pressure as possible. Walrix, though, taking most of the damage. Earthen Shield Totem does get dropped out by Lontar to prevent some of that damage. You can see Asgarath, he's going to be pushing in as well. Gets the double stun onto Walrix, onto Lontar, looking for a Cyclone, but nice life grip from Zot will free him up.
Curious here, Tempo Storms is dealing devastation throughout this series as Walrix and Zot are constantly under fire. Asgaroth isn't really feeling that heat as we see Tempo Storm retreat back behind the pillar to avoid the attack of Walrix and Zot. You will now see Zot and Walrix likely split up. Zot here towards the right side of Jamie and Asgaroth, and Walrix on the left. This way, always one member of the team can attack. Nixie with a late Spell Reflect, taking a Chaos Bolt, but then reversing the pressure and forcing it to disperse. Both teams going toe-to-toe. Nixie forced to retreat and pull back. This is where we need to see Zot and Walrix split up. They're both running the same direction. If they both run the same direction, it's very easy to avoid line of sight. Now they've managed to split up. Nixie actually decides to just charge forward, reckless abandon into the fight to get a kill. Already Lontar with a significant mana lead, but damage is following through. Walrix is trying to counter pressure. Lontar denies the kill, but they're still going after it. Asgaroth tries to cross midfield. Walrix denies him, but they manage to break it up with a Tremor Totem. There's a silence denying a Cyclone. Good silence by Zot, but Nixie keeps the chain going for the team. This is great teamwork by Tempo Storm to get this crowd control chain. It's actually forced Lontar to use his Gladiator's Medallion to break, but it may not even be enough. Zot's just getting hammered. Walrix can't get Nixie off his back. Walrix needs to do more damage now.
Yeah, Zot needs to use that Vampiric Embrace to help out Lontar just a little bit, but he's holding on to it, trying to just stay alive, trying to play in the open, and that's so Walrix can actually get some counter pressure, get some damage out. But look at mana, once again, Asgaroth way behind compared to Lontar, but Tempo Storm, they could easily close out the game with the way this pacing is going. Lontar gets Wind Shear, now Zot going for some additional damage here, getting into Void form. Nixie could be in some trouble, still caught in the midfield with a Spell Lock on Jamie and Fear on Asgaroth. Nicely done by Walrix, setting up his team. Zot follows it up with the silence. Nixi's not in that much trouble. Zot is the one. Might have to use his Void Shift here and swap his health with his teammate.
I think it's likely to have to happen. If he gets interrupted, he won't be able to. He's being greedy. Oh, close call for Zot, just right at the last possible second. Makes the trade. Nixie finally getting counter-pressured. Walrus ripping in. Another late Spell Reflect by Nixie. He cannot afford to keep Spell Reflecting after the Chaos Bolt is cast, but Zot is still taking it. Lone Tar denies the kill for a couple seconds with this Earthen Wall Totem. That dusty cloud, that dusty circle reduces damage to anyone standing inside of it, activated by Lone Tar, but now fading as Zot retreats away, trying to drag Nixie out in the open, but a Hex is secured by Jamie. Tempo Storm's crowd control has been on point, even though they're heavily behind on mana. If they keep their crowd control going on Lone Tar, Zot is running out of cooldowns, and the next chain could easily close the game. Nixie sees that. They have to go for it because Asgroth doesn't have any mana. Nixie initiates. They need damage here and now. If they want to take Zot out, they don't have anything left. Asgroth keeps the chain going. They need more. Feral Affinity, Asgroth trying to add to the fight as well. Is it going to be enough? Spearling Totem available. May be needed right now as Lone Tar drops it and makes the trade. He knows he's got the lead. Just a better decision to make a cooldown trade now and try to counter pressure. But even still, Nixie and Jamie are going at it.
Yeah, Zot's still in a lot of trouble, almost in execute range. He has the gateway. They haven't used it just yet. Might want to consider using that, but no, gets into void form. A lot of pressure now on Jamie. Silence on Asgroth, who is completely out of mana. He has nothing left. Group therapy, they just have to stay alive a little bit longer, prevent Asgroth from drinking, and I think they got this in the bag.
They've got Tempo Storm in a chokehold. Asgroth has no mana remaining. He cannot cast any significant healing spells. They're pinned down behind the pillar as 3 members. Walrix and Zot have them completely surrounded. Any angle, they're going to close this match. Asgroth has Innervate. All his spells are free for a couple seconds. Will that couple of seconds be enough for him to stabilize and counter-aggress? It would be an absolute miracle, but so far it's allowing him at least to hold on. They initiate some crowd control. They've got an 8-second window to kill Zot, 6 more seconds to kill Zot. I don't think they've got the damage to do it. Walrix is just raining down terror. Perfect map selection, great positioning, excellent execution as Group Therapy closes game 2.
That's the Walrix we wanted to see. And man, I'm having fun with these changes now. We weren't really sure how they were going to play out. I know in my mind, I'd be excited if, like, you could delete healers and that would make me excited, right? And now we're ultimately seeing just a lot of very high impact plays happen very early on, and you can just watch that mana bar go down very, very quickly. I don't even think we made it to dampening that time, Zico, and it's really cool to start to see how these are going to play out.
Yeah, it's just really nice to see how this functions. Like I said in the pregame, you want to be just running Asgroth out of mana as quickly as possible. If you are group therapy, you are going to have 2 high threat targets. If you go on Zot, Warwicks will be raining down chaos on top of their whole team. If you go on Warwicks, Zot will be doing the same thing. So you kind of have to pick your poison there. And for group therapy, it's all about that defensive cooldown rotation. You can't overlap a single defensive cooldown, and they did a great job with it, using that dispersion first, then Lone Tar's Trinket, then the Void Shift, then another disperse, constantly rotating those defensives, and then they found themselves in a situation where Asgroth was out of mana, Warwicks being able to apply enough pressure on the entire team of Tempo Storm to actually make that happen, and they managed to close the game.
Just a warrior, what do you think they're going to go for?
Asgroth could drink a lot more easily on this map potentially than Ashamane's, because the pillars on Ashamane's are a lot smaller. Tolvaron has the thickest pillars in the game, so you can avoid combat quite easily, sneak far away and drink. But they also have the trademarked Supati's Wizard Corner where there isn't anywhere to hide, so if Group Therapy play good position on this map, it still might be quite difficult for Asgroth to drink. I expect Tempo Storm to try and play a slower game, but even if they do, I still think Group Therapy has the advantage.
Sid keeps trademarking stuff.
Yeah.
He's been doing
trademarked it for me last week.
He's been doing it.
You.
I did it first, and then all week he's been coming up to me, like opening up the refrigerator. He's like, "Yeah, this is my trademarked salmon." Like, he just won't stop. This dude will not stop trademarking stuff. But Tolvaron, I do think we can expect more drink, Zico. When we looked at the last one, I think we ultimately saw Lone Tar out mana quite a bit, which is not something we expected. We thought the Druids were going to be able to get drinks constantly. We thought that was going to be one of their biggest advantages in the current change. We're going to have to see here. Asgrath, is he going going to get to be the cheeky kitten, which is frolicking in fields in his heart? Will he be able to get to these pillars, sneak these drinks in, and keep his team up longer than that of Lone Star? We're going to find out right now. Group Therapy trying to swing it here.
Will Asgaroth find the oasis in the desert of Tolvaron? We will find out momentarily here, because
Trademark that
Lone
one.
Tar's mana was significantly superior in that last match. He's really showcasing that Restoration Shaman to a level that we haven't had the opportunity to see yet this season, and I'm curious to see how it plays out for the rest of the match here, because this composition that Group Therapy have crafted, the Destruction Warlock and the Shadow Priest, may quite possibly be one of the strongest in the game currently.
Yeah, definitely really good at taxing healers, man, especially the Restoration Druid having to keep multiple heal over time effects on lots of different targets, and that definitely adds up and becomes expensive. You can see Asgaroth is going to be using that Innervate immediately as he puts his heal over time effects on multiple targets. So he just wants to get that that mana reduction cooldown rolling so he can get some free healing on his team.
And so it'll be available again. If he uses Innervate right away in the game, gets a ton of expensive free heals, there's an opportunity 3 minutes later that he can do it again. So that's smart Innervate usage by Asgaroth to be mana efficient, to try and outdo Lone Tar. Asgaroth crossing midfield. Very dangerous to do with both Zot and Walrix on his way, but he's managed to sneak across. Lone Tar preemptively had a cap totem on the ground, interrupting the chain, but no, the Infernal was 1 second too late. Misplay on Walrix's part. Now he has to trade a huge defensive cooldown just to go toe-to-toe, and they can't afford to make mistakes like that. That was a costly trade. Asgaroth's aggressive push paid off.
Yep, they are happy to get that unending resolve from Walrix. Pull behind the pillar, allow Asgaroth some time to top off his team. Jamie throwing in a lightning lasso just to control Zot a little bit in the situation. Not really using it for too much pressure, but just wants to avoid damage at all costs. And now, Temple Storm, they're in a great spot. The next time that Asgaroth, he has his bash up, he can push in, looking for a Cyclone once again. And Walrix, Zot, they have to make sure they stop that so Walrix can stay alive.
I'll say there's a significant difference in terms of target selection. Tempo Storm in the last game went after Zot. In this game, they're going after Walrix, and by going after Walrix, they stop Chaos Bolt, one of the hardest hitting attacks in the game, which is why we don't see Tempo Storm's health spiking nearly as much. However, Walrix takes a lot less damage than the Shadow Priest, so they can't really build momentum. Tempo Storm need to find opportunities to switch targets, find an opening, because Lone Tar has such a huge mana advantage in this specific case. Lone Tar's crossing map to deny any sorts of drinks. That Fell Hunter attacking Asgaroth will deny combat drop as well. Group Therapy have Tempo Storm in a chokehold. I think they're going to need to craft a different composition moving forward. It's really up to Asgaroth. His crowd control earlier in the match. Oh, beautiful Psychic Scream right as Asgaroth tried to jump across the map. Zot intercepts. He's still trying to go for it. Lone Tar moves in midfield so Walrix can at least back him up on this. Life Grip Lone Tar out of range of Cyclone, but Nixie's there to follow the chain instead, but they're just getting hammered. Walrix doing so much damage. You can't leave either of these members open. Both Zot and Walrix are just tearing in. Look at Tempo Storm's health. Asgaroth's already down at half mana, and he just can't recover.
Yeah, this is the problem. Anytime Asgaroth, he pushes in looking for crowd control, he just gets counter crowd controlled himself. Jamie has to trade out the Astral Shift as he's getting lower. Asgaroth trinketed it out as well. Walrix still low, though. Nixie doing a lot of damage. Nicely done. Lone Tar sitting in the back, trying to top him off with his Ascendance into a Stormbolt, though. Walrix still dipping dangerously low. But if we look, Tempo Storm, they are falling behind. Group Therapy, they are fully stable, and this is not looking good for Tempo Storm.
That Innervate that Asgaroth used at the start of the game means that he can use it right here when he probably absolutely needs it. Look how critical his mana is. These regrowths, he should have innervated on these casts. He's spending way too much mana. Now he activates it, but it may have been just a second too late. You have to be so efficient with your mana in this specific patch. And now Nixie's getting hammered. He's just trying to soak up Chaos Bolts with defensive stance. That reduces damage by 20%. He's kind of just the bullet taker for the team in this specific case. He's just soaking up as much damage as he can, whereas Asgaroth and Jamie don't have that defense, and he's doing a decent job so far, but aggressively, they just don't have anything going for them. There's so much defense still available for Group Therapy. If Zot and Walrix can split up again, put the Shadow Priest on the left side of Asgaroth, put Walrix on the right side of Asgaroth, deny this drink. They have to stop this drink. Asgaroth currently sitting a little bit too far away. Lone Tar is trying to trade. They have to race the drink. Zot moves in, but he's overextended. At least they stop it, but he managed to get some mana. Walrix is now trying to start something and close this match. Double Mortal Coil. Where are the Chaos Bolts? He's looking for one. Gets stopped by Jamie. They have to avoid these Chaos Bolts at all costs. While Infernals are rolling, they deal with significantly more damage. Walrix gets denied on another. Manages to finally get one. Can he get another is the question. 2 Chaos Bolts for Walrix. They're leaving him open. He's going after Asgaroth in midfield. Asgaroth ducks back around the corner, but now Nixie left out in the open field as Walrix tears in. More Chaos Bolts flying. Tempo Storm may have enough mana to keep this going, but not for much longer.
Yeah, definitely not. When Asgaroth went for a drink, Lone Tar did the same thing, except he got to sit and chug all the way to full. Now Lone Tar comfortably sitting in the back line once again, going to be able to top off his team. Nixie goes in, lands the full fear. Some damage over onto Zot, but Zot retreating, trying to get that VT on multiple targets. It's really important that Nixie and Jamie, they're constantly interrupting Zot, but like we kind of talked about, if they're just non-stop interrupting Zot, that allows Walrix. He gets to spam out Chaos Bolt, he gets to spam out Fears, and that's just going to be so disruptive for Tempo Storm.
I mean, look at Asgaroth's mana. Nixie's left in midfield, but if he has to keep casting Regrowth, that's one of the most expensive heals the Restoration Druid has, but he needs to. The damage is too high for anything else to suffice, as we see Tempo Storm starting to dwindle down in health and mana. Dampening just kicked in. They need an absolute miracle at this point to find a kill. The entire defensive lineup available for group therapy. Utter domination here in game number 3. I thought Tempo Storm was going to close this out based on Warwick's performance on Balance Druid, but now that he's back on this Destruction Warlock, he is raining down terror. Nixie barely hangs on. Asgaroth sets up for what needs to be the kill, but they've got so much defense it would be a complete throwaway. Walrix denies it. No, Jamie keeps it going. Nixie is the one that's still low. Zot manages to trade efficiently. Dispersion denies the kill while Lone Tar sat through that crowd control. Tempo Storm finally starting to crack the wall. That is group therapy, but it might not be enough. Asgaroth still totally tapped on mana. 7% dampening. Chaos Bolt's flying in at this point as Tempo Storm scramble to get a kill.
Yeah, Asgaroth, look at him. He's running into the corner looking for a drink, manages to sit down. Walrix has to shut him down. Does he find the Cataclysm? Yes, he does. Asgaroth caught in stealth, now still with no mana, into a full fear. Jamie and Nixie, they're just going to be rotting down. Group therapy, they have so many defensives left at their disposal. Lone Tar does drop out the Earthen Shield Totem for Zot. Vampiric Embrace is rolling, and it is just a matter of time. Nixie getting lower. Disarm onto Asgaroth into a full stun. Chaos Bolt after Chaos Bolt coming in from Walrix. They just need to stay alive and continue to do as much damage as they can.
Shadow Fury secured onto 2 members of Tempo Storm. You cannot leave Walrix open. Lone Tar breaks out of that crowd control to keep his team going. He's got them in a chokehold, but he's actually almost tapped on mana. Suddenly, this might be an even game if Asgaroth can manage to scrape his health of his team back. Asgaroth jumps in, maybe for a bash to try and win the game. Lone Tar repositions. They catch him out in midfield while he tried to cross. He doesn't have mana to heal that back. He's just going to be at low health probably for the rest of the game at this point. He's not going to be able to get aggressive, and that's critical. This Fell Hunter keeping him in combat. Walrix doing a great job micromanaging the pet. Asgaroth not dropping combat. Nixie is just going down, and at this point, Group Therapy have complete control of the match. Nixie tries to carry maybe in the final seconds. They're not even attacking Zot. Nixie's on a different target. He's just blade-storming in midfield like a ballerina that's about to explode at this point. There's nothing left for the team of Tempo Storm. Chaos Bolt's raining in. One more closes it. Nixie holds on by a thread, but it's not enough as Group Therapy are starting to come back in this series. Utter domination.
A ballerina with a sword, cliche in his way, straight to death. Group Therapy going to be able to take another one, and you look at Walrix, and you're excited to see those Chaos Bolts, but I think the bigger picture here is not only the composition, which we know is strong, but the fact that we just saw the advantage that you get from winning the blind pick gone. This was the swing matchup, and we saw them lock in this huge map, which allowed these Wizards to go crazy.
Yeah, this is a really, really bold pick from Tempo Storm. I did not agree with the map pick whatsoever, unless they were also changing their composition, which they didn't. They essentially picked a worse map than Ashamane's, and yeah, it didn't pay off at all.
Now, when we actually do look at the matchup, what was the key moment where we did see Group Therapy take it?
Just right here, you can see Warwick. He's double Shadow Furies Asgaroth, Fierce Jamie to prevent that Tremor Totem, and then you see those double coils right there on Asgaroth and Nixie. Now, Tempo Storm, in general, they need to do these pushes on top of Group Therapy to try to set up those crowd controls, because as we already saw, they are the ones that are on the time limit here. They're the ones working against the clock. And Warwick's role as the free casting member is always going to be doing just that, what we saw right there. He needs to disrupt everybody, getting nice stuns like that, double coils, shutting down the offense before it even happens, and while they are in those crowd controls, setting up those big juicy Chaos Bolts as well to counter that pressure, and he is one of the best at doing just that.
Now, I want to take it a step further looking into this next game as we do actually watch these plays and start to think about what Tempo Storm does do.
That was their swing match. They just gave the Game 5 back to group therapy. They can set up the perfect situation even if Tempo Storm has an answer now. This was a huge throwaway to go on to Tolvaron Arena and risk this.
It's not very often that we see a swing matchup spat on like this. Like, I really do feel like they took it and they shred it to pieces, but how do they actually flip things around? Because one of the things that they do, even though I don't think that it was the right pick, they did somewhat deny a map here in a weird way then. Like, this isn't going to be the map pool again when we do get to Game 5. I think they still have plenty of options. We're not in a best of 7.
I mean, they denied a map to lose, so it's not really deny. I mean, if you're going to go to a map, your best result is to win. That's what happened.
That was the brightest the brightest thing I could find in that scenario. Well, it's tough to find a silver lining here.
What I think Tempo Storm was looking for in this game is Asgaroth just has a little bit more space to drink, but unfortunately with the Fell Hunter chasing him around the entire game, Walrix and Zot on point, just making sure they keep up pressure, making sure he can never escape for a drink. At one point, I think he recovered about 30% of his mana, but Lontar did the smart thing. He's like, okay, you're going to drink, I'm going to drink even longer. Had a lot more mana regeneration there. And for Tempo Storm, I don't actually know what composition they should run into this. Like, I feel like Shadow Priest and the Destruction Warlock right now, they're super durable against melee. Against casters, they're particularly strong. And I think in the long game, these two classes are going to do more damage than basically anything.
I think they probably are going to be focusing on their map selection here, but like Sid said, Zico, when we do get to Game 5 now, if we do get all the way there, which I don't even think you expect at this point with how we're seeing group therapy play, the Game 5 is going to go the way of group therapy as far as the advantage goes with picks. How do you like Tiger's Peak?
Tiger's Peak is a pretty neutral map, and what Tiger's Peak tells me right off the get-go is that we're probably going to see most likely the same composition locked in from Tempo Storm, or a melee caster healer of some sort. I think that what I would have liked to see would be Jamie on that enhancement shaman, a small map like Black Recalled or Dalaran Sewers, and then maybe they could try to ride down Warwicks, use those off interrupts, those wind shears and those hexes that the enhancement shaman would bring to the table onto Zot, try to shut him down a little bit that way, and perhaps get a win that with that strategy, or maybe go onto Zot and try to do the crowd controls onto Warwicks and shut him down a little bit. What I don't want to see is more of the same here. I want to see a change from Tempo Storm, and since they picked a kind of medium-sized map, our best bet would be to see just a full-on wizard mirror here. Maybe have Alec come in on that mage with an Ellie Shaman or something like that.
Tempo Storm, traditionally a team that does like to counterpick quite a bit. At the beginning of this series, even, we were complimenting how intelligent we thought this composition was, but it seems like group therapy does have the right answer. Sid, do you agree with Zico that this is the time to make the change with your back against the wall when group therapy's on match point?
I just think that the Shadow Priest Destruction Warlock paired together is the king. It's the top of the ladder, it's top of the pyramid, it's the pharaoh of wizards. There's no better combination of ranged classes that you could put together to go toe-to-toe. So unless Alec plays Destruction Warlock himself, then maybe Destruction Warlock Elemental Shaman I could see battling out, maybe even that case. But Lontar's mana has been so great that I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. And they're sticking with this composition with the Warrior Elemental makes sense on paper, and in the past has been the counter to Destruction Warlocks. But since the introduction of Demon Armor, the extra health and the extra armor to protect the Warlock from the Warrior, it's a lot less threatening, and it allows group therapy to stand more stable in the fight and then counter-aggress their opponents away. So it's not a complete counter pick in this regard, but let's see if Tempo Storm can do it. This is match point. They go home if they lose.
Well, there's a couple of tweaks they can do as well, like in the game. But I ultimately agree with you. I think that group therapy for sure has the edge here, but small things like the Feral Affinity from Asgaroth really wasn't getting too much value, and we saw him get chunked down a couple of times behind those pillars. He could have the Frenzied Region there, for example, with the Bear Form Affinity, and have a couple of extra free heals to give himself at least, and be a little bit more mana efficient because of that. Just small spec changes is what they're going to have to do, and I want to see Tempo Storm go after Zot again and not play offensive onto Lonta. Don't try to set up those crowd control chains. Group therapy have perfect defense. They rotate their cooldowns way too good. Just try to win on that mana as well, and just try to use your interrupts on Warwicks and create pressure onto Zot.
Tempo Storm, in their swing matchup, take a really bold move, and group therapy is able to take advantage of it. Here, they look to close the book on this series and take the first win of the day. The gates are now open.
Yeah, we'll have to see what Jamie and Nixie can get done. Asgaroth's going to be charging in once again, looking for some crowd control. Looks like Zot is going to be the target of choice, but like we kind of talked about, that's going to leave Walrix free. Right away, Zot's taking a whole bunch of bursts of the Stormbolt onto Lontar. Good initial aggression here by Temple Storm.
Asgaroth shadow melded Walrix Mortal Coil, broke up the chain, and was able to get aggressive and maybe get a kill in the first second of the match. Sick play by Asgaroth. That pulls them a Void Shift. That's the strongest defensive cooldown for the Shadow Priest. They may even get more off the back of that sick play. Asgaroth is getting more aggressive in this matchup, and that's what he needs to do. He's losing on mana. He needs to get in their face with the Feral Affinity, deal more damage, get more crowd control, but still avoid death at the same time. Everything rides on Asgaroth for Tempo Storm as they face elimination.
Yeah, Nixie getting low, does have the Iron Bark preventing some of that damage. Now a stun onto Lontar, and you can tell Tempo Storm, they realize they have to get aggressive, but Asgaroth may have overstayed his welcome. Barkskin and Iron Bark going to be used, as well as the dive out the sword by Nixie. Zot in the meantime getting low as well. He still has the dispersion, playing it a little bit greedy there, but ultimately survives from a huge heal coming in from Lontar playing in the back.
Asgaroth is weaving in and out of cat form a lot better in this match. He needs to at least get some damage for his team to get a kill against the defensive group Therapy, but it's so difficult with Walrix just looking at him, just eyeing him every second he's out in the open. Hey, I got a Chaos Bolt for you. Asgaroth has to do the most difficult task of avoiding death and executing just a tiny bit of extra damage for his team if they want to find a kill here. They're already behind on mana as Group Therapy. They look unshaken from that initial attack, even though they traded the most powerful defensive. They have not overlapped anything from that point. Asgaroth jumps into the fight. Walrix intercepts him immediately. Walrix has to be the goalkeeper for his team to deny this catform Asgaroth from building momentum. Lontar sits through a lot of crowd control. Nixie tries to dish out the pain during that moment, but it doesn't even seem to be like enough as we see him getting counter pressured away. Asgaroth jumps into the fight. It might just be enough. Amazing damage output this game. Just the tiniest bit extra from Asgaroth. He still has a difficult task to try and keep his team alive whilst adding this extra damage. Can he do it?
Yeah, honestly, Asgaroth's been doing such a tremendous job, honestly, making Group Therapy panic during this game. Now a silence on Asgaroth. He has to shrink it out as Nixie is getting a little bit low. Both teams playing hyper-aggressive here. Group Therapy, they have to hold on a little bit longer. Nice Tremor drop by Lontar on the heroic leap. Intimidating shout coming in from Nixie. Very nice plays.
Walrix, he's definitely an excellent goalkeeper, keeping Jamie and Asgaroth locked down, but Nixie's just soloing Zot. They want to stay in this tournament. This is a completely different Tempo Storm here in Game 4. Zot barely staying alive, and it may not even be enough. He will fall, and this looks like a completely different matchup when Asgaroth gets aggressive. He took the risks, but it's going to pay off, and it keeps them in the tournament.
Oh man, Tempo Storm going to be able to extend this series. We were watching it, and Zico just looked over at me at a certain point in that matchup and just went, Zico, let's actually break down everything that did happen in this series.
In the pregame, we said, I want to see Asgaroth go completely defensive and bad form. He said, well, what do you know? You're sitting there on the desk. He goes full offense instead. But that was one of the things that we critiqued. He wasn't getting that value out of that Feral Affinity. That's not going to be the case this time around. Instead, he gets very aggressive, and that's what you have to do with that Feral Affinity play to win. And also, we were crediting Group Therapy's defensive play a lot, saying that they're not making any defensive overlaps here. Lontar going to be overlapping that Spirit Link Totem with Zot's dispersion. Zot is going to be being forced to use that Void Shift before his dispersion. Of course, you want to use the dispersion, then maybe Lontar's Trinket, then the Void Shift, and then you can get that dispersion back. A lot easier to play around a cooldown like dispersion because it's much shorter than the Void Shift. You're only going to have one Void Shift in a game like this. So a couple of mistakes there on the side of Group Therapy, but some of these mistakes were definitely forced because of Asgaroth's offensive play. Tempo Storm looks a little bit revitalized in this one.
Yeah, this right here, right now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is an amazing map pick. We don't see Blade's Edge often. It's very chaotic, but it's perfect for Destruction Warlock. They want to get Asgaroth out in the open on the top of the bridge and just tear him apart. Can Asgaroth carry the team? He's kicked up the aggression. He's going to jump right into the opposing team and be the initiator as tons of damage. Perfect Thunderstorm. Zot's knocked far away from his team. Warwick deflects the kill for now. Bit of a panicked moment, but Zot starts to stabilize.
Yeah, Zot Zot. He had to use the Psychic Core onto Nixie to try to slow him down just a little bit. Zot just not able to get any damage rolling, and that's really good about this strategy from Templestorm. He's getting lower. Dispersion is forced as well with the Intimidating Shot onto Lone Star. Beautiful Cyclone and Templestorm. This aggression is just destroying Group Therapy.
They're falling apart. They're trading cooldown after cooldown, but they do catch Azeroth. This is why they picked the map, was to go after him, and he needs to be able to juggle both offense and defense, sneaking under the bridge for a second, but now they switch their attention to Jamie. This is the disadvantage on Blade's Edge. They have to duck for cover downstairs, but even still quivering under the pressure of Walrix. He's going to jump down, chase after them. Zot on the upside is trying to still get pressure. They've managed to restabilize. Bit of a close call for Tempostorm, but if they can get it back together and get aggressive, they could just close it out. And they need a stun for Zot. No stun available. It still may just be a Void Shift with just damage alone. Spiraling Totem from Lone Tar. The most defense we've seen pulled from Group Therapy, all on Asgaroth's shoulders as he takes a very big risk on Restoration Druid. Feral Affinity is probably the most difficult thing you can play, but he gets caught in a fear. There's no Tremor Totem. Jamie's all alone upstairs. Nixie is exposed. Walrix is carrying. This map was perfect for Group Therapy as they swing back.
Yeah, Nixie's still low. Asgaroth has to play catch up. Barkskin does get used as well as the dive by the sword, but that fades. Nixie's still so vulnerable in this situation. Lone Tar, I think he's been throwing out some purges in this matchup as well, just trying to get some semblance of counter pressure. Both teams having to play aggressive, don't want to fall behind on mana, but also want to keep up the aggression. Asgaroth now caught into a fear, does get tremored out. It actually just breaks. Jamie still has the Tremor Totem available if he needs it. Still good pressure for the Group Therapy. Nixie getting lower. Mortal Coil onto Jamie and Asgaroth. Nixie all alone. Beautiful Spell Reflect on that Chaos Bolt, but that's gonna fade. Almost in death range. Lots of damage still incoming from Group Therapy.
Everybody on Tempostorm is dying. It's their tournament lives on the line as Walrix looks to close this game out. Jamie's out of range. He can't get Asgaroth out of that fear. They still have some pressure though. Zot gets bursted down. He needs to trade. He trades Fade. He actually fades the incoming Maledict of Jamie, immuning that incoming healing absorb. Nice play by Zot. Great execution by Walrix. Really upped his game throughout this series, putting the team on his back, utilizing this map perfectly. Asgaroth's out in midfield. Everybody getting torn apart here. Maybe an opportunity though, as both Zot and Jamie dip low. It's match point. Either player could fall. Zot makes the trade. Jamie doesn't really have that luxury. He's just holding on by a thread. Zot secures more crowd control, but he is still low. It could still be a kill. Walrix gets swapped on health by Zot. The cooldowns have been burned through one by one as Group Therapy just try to stay in it and try and push Tempostorm over. They need the tiniest bit more damage to close this series, but they're just not finding it.
Yeah, Jamie has to dip out of line of sight to try to avoid these Chaos Bolts, but Walrix still there. Lands another one on Jamie. A little bit of the damage was reduced by that Iron Bark, but now that that's faded, Jamie all alone into the Cap Sun, still just trying to run for his life. Trinkets out of nothing. Asgaroth dispels him out. Zot in the meantime getting low as well. No dispersion available. No Void Shift. Lone Tar, can you keep him alive? They're both can't believe it. Both teams can't believe what is going on right now. Walrix still finds another Chaos Bolt onto Nixie. Asgaroth almost completely tapped on mana. Lone Tar, no mana left, and anyone could fall.
At this point, it's anyone's match. Zot might just go down. There's Chaos Bolts on Nixie. Either player could. Zot's just gonna go for the kill. There's nothing left. Is he gonna get it? Yes, he gets it. Zot holds on. Asgaroth is feared up. Jamie's silenced. They don't have enough damage, I don't think, but maybe they do. He's out of mana. 20 seconds until dispersion. The lightning lasso. Is it gonna be enough? Zot, nice Vampiric Embrace. He's gonna heal himself just a tad bit, and Zot manages to clean it up here right at the end of this match. Tempostorm put it down to the wire, but they're going home. Walrix is back.
Is tonight gonna be one of those days where we actually see a bunch of cross kills happen? We're really starting to get a feel for this patch now, and it's gonna be Group Therapy raining Chaos Bolts down, gonna be able to take this series, and we gotta go back. It's obviously very easy to get excited about that particular game, but I do want to think about the series as a whole, because I think when we did get to that swing matchup, when we got to that game 3, Zico, that was where all of a sudden there was a huge shift in their favor.
Absolutely. I mean, the swing match, we talk about it time and time again. When you play that game number 1, you lose it, then the loser gets to pick that double advantage. And if they win that and then win the next game, they get that double advantage on their side. I mean, what really this game came down to here was those Infernos that just got dropped there by Warwicks towards the end of that match. Unbelievable how close this entire series was. It just really came down to the wire. You can see Zot has nothing left to work with. He's on 20% HP, 2 executes or 1 execute from Nixie, and this game could have been completely different. It's incredible to see, and the map pick as well. Very, very bold from Group Therapy. You would expect these Wizards to go to something a little bit more standard, a little bit bigger, but no, they're going to select Blade's Edge into the Elemental Shaman, and they're going to make it work, finding pressure on Asgarath, finding pressure on everybody. Warwick's just raining terror on the entire team.
And